The following video you are about to see is of a Georgia farmer who, through eminent domain, will be evicted from his farm.
So we need to talk about this Georgia farmer that did not vote for Donald Trump. And now the county, 60% of the citizens that voted for Donald Trump and whose officials are all Trump supporters, took over 225 acres of his farmland through eminent domain. They've given him 90 days to vacate his cattle and all of his equipment. They've already got the engineering firms and the construction companies showing up on his farmland. He's being literally bulldozed. Not only did the majority of the county vote for Donald Trump, all of the officials behind this decision support Donald Trump. The other entity behind this is Georgia's Department of Transportation, which is also run by Trump supporters. And what's sad is this farmland contains centuries-old pecan groves. They're plowing right through this. And there's not going to be any public jets there. This isn't for public transportation. This is for use by wealthy white millionaires and billionaires who can afford private jets. So this is where I want Georgia taxpayers to pay attention. You're paying for the rich white man's private airport with 47 million of your tax dollars. And it gets even worse. You and I are paying 40 million of it through a grant that Trump's FAA is giving to them. So we're paying for these wealthy white men to have their fun on a private airport and take away the land of a farmer who did not vote for this. He's made it very clear that he's never voted for Donald Trump, that Trump policies have done nothing but hurt his farm and his business. And this is the ultimate pain. And I just have to say, all of you Trump supporters that are all about, we love the farmers, America first, you guys let Jeff down. You let Jeff down. Racism is expensive.
Some more sad news to report. This is Nicholas Gilbert. Nicholas owns a farm in upstate New York called Adon Farms, about 20 miles from the border of Canada. Nicholas's farm survives on very small margins. So when he put in an order to Canada for feed for his 1,400 cows, he was surprised when the order came in that there was an extra $2,200 tacked on top. Nicholas didn't understand why. He was told by Trump that Canada would pay the tariff. We tried to warn Nicholas, but sometimes people that wear that hat, their brains aren't really working too well. Looks like Nicholas might now be losing his farm. What a shame.
Check out how Trump's policies are destroying these red state farmers who voted for him, and we're going to be right back.
Now, I've never been as worried as I am now about whether or not my kids and grandkids will be able to carry on.
He said, I love you, Mr. Trump. I need to see the fruit of your love.
5 of my customers have committed. That's how serious that this is.
And what it costs for us to farm is astronomical now.
I farm with paid for equipment. All my tractors are 50 years old, and I can't hardly make this deal work. I think the tariffs are the ice cream on the cake of a perfect storm.
After a horrible year last year where most farmers in Arkansas Delta lost money, this year's going to be worse.
So my son will not be the seventh generation on our farm.
We're going to lose 25 or 30% of the farmers in this country if they don't do something. It has to be done, and it's not just here. It's everywhere.
I want to tell you the story of Brian and Brad Watson, father and son, farmers in Pennsylvania. They voted for Donald Trump and now they're losing everything.
Guys, what happens when the people feeding America can no longer afford to, survive themselves? Across the United States, farmers are facing one of the biggest economic crises in, decades. Fertilizer prices are exploding, diesel costs are crashing profits, labor shortages are leaving crops rotting in fields, and family farms that have existed for generations are now facing bankruptcy, foreclosure, or complete collapse. But here's the uncomfortable part. Many of these farming communities supported the very political policies they believed would protect them. Well, today we are going to talk about the growing crisis affecting American farmers, why so many are struggling financially, and how politics, trade wars, and labor shortages and corporate pressure may have pushed rural American into a dangerous situation.
I found this scrolling on social media. Let me know what y'all think about this.
Well, all of us farmers have officially fucked around, and we have officially found the fuck out now, guys. I am on the verge of bankruptcy. I'm on the verge of fucking tears. Overnight, all of my fucking help fled. My help, out of fear for their safety, their lives, they fucking fled. And now I am left out here standing in my unharvested carrot field. It is January, and I'm in Kansas, and this is when carrot harvest goes in fucking Kansas. This field should be full of workers, but all my fucking workers left. And who the fuck do you think is to blame for that? Every single one of them left. Now I have to by myself try to fill that truck with a load of fucking carrots in one day, and I can't do that, guys. I have to get these fucking carrots to market by next week or my contract is fucking terminated. This is $936,000 worth of carrots right here, and I can't fucking pick them by myself. If they're unharvested, I will get kicked out of that contract, and I will get sued by the fucking Planters Loves Carrots company for that fucking money. But I have nobody that'll come fucking pick my carrots. Fuck, we are so fucking cooked, farmers.
You are not going to believe this. I made a video yesterday that went viral. I was talking about Jeff Mellon, a Georgia farmer from Spalding County, whose 225 acres that were in his family for generations was taken over by all Republican officials through eminent domain to build a private, a county airport that's going to be used by private jet owners and corporate jets. Okay, it went viral. He did not vote for Donald Trump. He's been very outspoken that Trump and Republicans have done nothing but hurt his farming business and those of others. Well, Maura Keller reached out to me. This is in her district. She's running as the Democrat for this House seat in District 3 in Spalding County. The election is tomorrow. And she shared this with me. This is her Republican opponent. He is the incumbent. He's running for re-election. And he is standing on the broken ground that this farmer was just told he has 90 days to vacate his cattle and his farming equipment. And in it, Representative Brian Jack says, I was honored to join the wonderful people of Spalding County today in celebration of the groundbreaking of the Griffin-Spalding Regional Airport. This historic achievement was delivered through the collaboration of federal, Republican state, and Republican local stakeholders. And its construction will create more jobs and grow the economy across Georgia's 3rd congressional district. Thank you to the Undersecretary of Transportation, who gave them $40 million to build this of your tax dollars and my tax dollars. Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones and Spalding County's leaders for participating in our ceremony today. Did I tell you it was all Trump Republicans that harmed this farmer? So tomorrow's the election. Vote for Maura Keller in District 3. Unbelievable.
Their story was recently covered in an article in the New York Times titled The Last Days of Butter Ridge. It's a lengthy piece, and I will put a link in the video description below if you'd like to read it yourself. I'm going to read just a part of this article, and then I have some comments I'd like to make. Now, I will tell you that this article is written in such a way as to make you feel sorry for Brian and Brad. You can feel for them however you like, but I will explain to you what I think of Brian and Brad when I'm done. Let me read just a little of this, and then I'll have some points to make. Brad Watson, 41, awoke without an alarm at 5:30 a.m., strapped on his headlamp, and headed to the barn. Cold air leaked through a small gap in the boards, and he stuffed a paper bag into the hole to block the wind. He knew every detail of the barn in the morning. Hay shifting beneath his boots, heat rising off the cows, the way the milking equipment froze against his hands. He walked through the stalls to greet each cow by name, and then stopped. It was Meg, a purebred cow, one of his best. She had flipped over her stall in the night and twisted in her chain, strangling to death. He knelt to touch her head and then kept walking toward the milking parlor. More than 90 other cows still needed to be milked, twice a day, every day. And that work never stopped for a weekend or a vacation or a dead cow or any other crisis during a winter in which his family dairy business was beginning to unravel. He guided the cows into the parlor one at a time, patting their flanks to help them stay calm. "Come on, girls, settle down," he said. He hooked each one up to a machine and watched the milk start to flow as he ran through the numbers again in his head. His milk check came every other week, and it never covered his bills. Feed, fuel, fertilizer, all had nearly doubled in recent months. Lately, he was losing several $100s each day, and without Meg, the math would be worse. Brad attached the next cow to the machine and texted his father, Brian Watson, 62. "I can't keep going like this," Brad told him. "I could make more by picking cans up off the road. I'm done." "Don't think you failed," Brian responded. "You're the last Watson milking." The Watsons had been dairy farming since before the Civil War. One of dozens of Watson farms that had spread across northern Pennsylvania over the generations, and then, like dairy farms everywhere, gradually disappeared. The number of dairy farms in the United States had fallen to fewer than 25,000, from a peak of nearly 700,000 in the 1970s. Milk prices had barely risen in half a century, held down by overproduction and a handful of large corporations that dominated the dairy market. The costs of running a family farm had skyrocketed by as much as 500%. Brad had supported Donald Trump.
Did y'all see that farmer that voted for Trump that's now about to lose his farm because of Trump? Even though Kamala was the one who passed the bill to give him the money that he needed for his farm in the first place. Now he's on TikTok begging for us to help him keep his farm, and he's going to say, oh, it's not supposed to be an us versus us. It's supposed to be us versus them. Us. Then he going to say, oh, it's corrupted on both sides of the aisle. It's all about money. So you thought the felon who was impeached was in the pockets of billionaires, had dozens of cases out against him. You thought he was the less corrupt option to go with over the woman who worked in all three branches of the government, spent her entire life being a civil servant, and passed the specific bill that gave you the loan that you needed for your farm, that the administration you voted for has just signed an executive order to undo. Oh, all I have for you, sir, are concepts of sympathy. I have concepts of thoughts and prayers. Do I have them actually? No. I won't be holding up the prayer line for you. Why would I do that? No, I'm not helping. No. And what's so funny is there's probably a bunch of farmers that voted for Trump that are now about to lose their farms because of him. Y'all thought he cared about y'all just because y'all share the same. He don't. Because not only do you have to be YT for him to actually give a fuck about you, you also have to be rich. That's the point y'all are missing. Y'all not rich. Y'all are working people. He's not for y'all.
Alaska is a very rural state, big farm state, an incredibly intense agricultural interest there, not just farms, but big agribusiness. There is a real crisis that is bubbling up in rural America, and particularly family farms. We're seeing a spike in bankruptcies. We're seeing fertilizer prices go through the roof. We're seeing people having a hard time getting their hands on fertilizer. Are you hearing that as you travel around the state campaigning, and how acute is that?
It's very real, Chris. I talk to row crop farmers and small family farmers and ranchers every single day. I was just talking to a farmer. He was getting out of his John Deere to come meet me, and he was he only farms 1,900 acres, and he was saying his inputs on fertilizer are up $50,000 than they would have been pre-war. And so what that means is we're in a farm crisis, and this is not to mention the diesel prices. That's another factor in their inputs. They are absolutely struggling. Like you mentioned, the bankruptcies, they're up 46% in 2025. This is going to continue. Our farmers are aging. If we can't keep farming profitable, the younger generation isn't going to want to stick around and farm on that. And I don't have to tell everybody that 2% of the population feed the rest of us. And Nebraska, you look at our exports. We're 5th in the nation in soybeans. We're 2nd in corn, and we're 1st in beef. And this is first and foremost an agricultural state. And we have the first pillar of farming is we have to keep them profitable. And this bailout of $12 billion. I asked the same farmer. I said, "Is that going to bail you out for 2026? He said, "No, absolutely not. It might, it was going to help me with my inputs for 2026. It does nothing for me in 2025. I'm out. I got a silo full of rotting beans." And that's not to mention the rest of us who are on the chopping block from having to choose between pay our rent, pay our electric bill, buy groceries, and now put gas in our vehicles to try to get to work. This is absolutely ridiculous. People are pissed off. I'm pissed off. And, they're seeing a bad tariff policy and bad foreign policy play out in real time.
Nebraska Senate candidate Dan Osborne, independent, will be standing for election in that state against the incumbent Senator Ricketts. Thanks so much.
The scary thing about this crisis is how quietly it's happening. Most Americans still walk into grocery stores and see full shelves, so they assume everything is fine. But behind the scenes, many farmers are barely holding on. Some farmers say fertilizer costs alone have increased by tens of thousands of dollars. Diesel prices continue eating away at profits. Dairy farmers are working non-stop while losing money almost every single day. And then there is the labor issue. A huge part of American agriculture depends on immigrant workers. But stricter immigration policies and fear of deportation have reportedly caused entire workforce to disappear overnight in some farming communities. That means crops don't get harvested, contracts get cancelled, farmers get sued, and millions of dollars can literally rot in fields. Now, here's where the conversation becomes politically uncomfortable. A lot of these communities voted for stronger tariffs, tougher immigration enforcement, and leaders who promised to protect American industries. But many farmers are now saying those same policies are financially hurting them instead. And whether people want to admit it or not, this crisis, raises serious questions about how politics and economic reality collide. When people think of farmers, they usually picture hard-working families living simple lives in rural America. Early mornings, open land, generation of farms passed down from parents to children. But for many American farmers today, that image is slowly turning into a nightmare. Across the country, farming families are dealing with what many describe as a perfect storm. Rising costs, unstable markets, labor shortages, debt, and political uncertainty are, all hitting at the exact same time. Now, let's start with the economics. The cost of farming has become almost unbearable for smaller family operations. Fertilizer prices have skyrocketed. Fuel costs are draining profits. Equipment repairs are, more expensive than ever. Animal feed costs keep rising, and yet many farmers are still being paid nearly the same prices they were years ago. Imagine running a business where every single expenses keeps increasing, but your income barely changes. That is the reality many farmers are, living right now. Some dairy farmers say they work 7 days a week with no vacations, no weekends, and almost no profit left at the end of the month. Some even admit they would make more money doing basic hourly jobs than continuing to, run the farms their families built generations ago. And emotionally, that destroys people. For many farming families, this isn't just a business. It's a legacy. Some have owned the same land since the 1800s. So when they talk about losing the farm, they are talking about losing family history, identity, and even generations of sacrifice. Now, let's talk about politics. A difficult truth in this story is that many rural farming communities strongly supported MAGA politics, tariffs, and aggressive immigration policies because they believed those policies would protect American workers and industries. But many farmers are now discovering that reality is far more complicated. Tariffs increased costs on imported farming supplies, while also disrupting, foreign markets that American farmers depended on to sell crops. Some farmers suddenly found themselves paying more to grow food while leaving fewer buyers to sell to. That is a brutal combination. Then there is the immigration issue. A lot of American agriculture depends heavily on immigrant labor. But fear surrounding deportations and crackdowns reportedly caused many workers to leave farming, areas entirely. And without workers, crops stay in the ground. There are reports of farmers losing hundreds of thousands of dollars because they simply, didn't have enough labor to harvest their fields in time. And if they fail to meet the delivery contracts, they can face lawsuits, financial penalties, and even bankruptcy. So now, many farmers feel trapped. They supported policies they believed would strengthen America, but instead, some say they are, being crushed by the economics consequences of those same policies. And this is where the conversation becomes bigger than Republicans versus Democrats. Because when family farms collapse, everyone eventually feels it. Food prices rise, rural communities shrink, supply chains weaken, local economies disappear, and large corporations gain even more control over food production. Meanwhile, smaller farmers continue disappearing year after year. And honestly, this situation reveals something deeper, more, about modern politics in general. People often vote based on identity, culture, emotion, and promises. But economic reality doesn't care about politics slogans. It only responds to outcomes. And right now, many American farmers are experiencing outcomes they never expected. Some are losing money every day they, stay open. Some are drowning in debt. Some are watching land that's, been in their families for generations disappear. That is not just an economic issue. That is personal. At the end of the day, regardless of politics, most farmers are simply trying to survive. They want to provide for their families, keep their land, and continue producing food for the country. The real question now is whether America will take this crisis seriously before even more, family farms disappear for good. And honestly, by the time most people notice the damage, it may already be too late. Guys, drop your thoughts on the comments. Let me know what you think. Also, remember to subscribe, like, and share as well. And until next time, bye-bye.